Good evening and welcome to our virtual workshop session of the Kettering City Council. So we'll go ahead and begin. Mr. Schwederman.
Thank you, Your Honor. As always with the workshop, we'll start with the agenda review for this evening. Wanted to mention a couple of things that are there. First, we have a resolution, or I'm sorry, we have a resolution for the facade improvement program. And this is for the property that is at the corner of Wilmington Pike and Devon. And that corner used to be a Union Savings Bank, if you recall that. It's now going to be a coffee shop, and we've been working with them over the last several months. It's under construction now, and they have met all the requirements in their plans to be code compliant and make the necessary facade and site improvements to be eligible for our grant funding. So we're recommending tonight you approve that grant for the Wilmington Pike facade improvement program. Are there any questions on that item before I move on? All right, well, seeing no hands raised, we'll just keep moving right along. Your Honor, as far as agenda items, I sent you an email. I don't know if you received it or not, but Steve will be taking resolution number 1.
Correct.
And I will take resolutions 2, 3, and 4.
Perfect.
One last thing I wanted to just mention, we do have a resolution tonight from essentially the National League of Cities asking us to be what is called a champion partner in helping with them get resolutions passed in support of working through the federal government and working with the federal funds that are coming down for COVID-19 to get money directly to the local governments in a manner and shape which they can use them. So I shared that email with the mayor late last week, and we decided to go ahead and put that resolution on the agenda this evening. I know the mayor's been working, as well as Bruce, from a standpoint of making sure our legislators are aware of what we're looking for. But this resolution, if you pass it tonight, we'll make sure that we get that to the NLC as soon as possible for them to look at.
Good.
Any questions on the agenda? That's all I had specifically for the agenda this evening.
No.
All right, so we'll move on just to some miscellaneous items before we move into COVID-19 related discussions. And I do want to mention we will need an executive session this evening. I suspect we'll get there a little before 7 o'clock, and then I'll make sure we have plenty of time in between the workshop and the council meeting so you can take a little break before we move into the council meeting. The first thing I wanted to mention is Chief Butts has been working with possible recipients for a donation of one of our KME fire engines. These are roughly 20 plus years old. We have 2 of them. One of them is surplus, and typically we work to have those donated when their value gets so low that it makes more sense to let another organization benefit from them. We reached out to Kettering schools and they declined our offer. So then we reached out to Sinclair, and they were very happy to receive it. They had just lost an engine, so this one will fill that void for them. So this is just kind of an FYI. The value of that engine is about $3,500, and we'll sign the necessary paperwork administratively to get that process started to turn it over to Sinclair as a donation.
Are they going to put that into service then?
They use it for their training, for their school.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, it'll still roll, for lack of a better way to describe it. But some of the functioning parts aren't quite where they need to be for us to use as a frontline apparatus. But they can get the benefit of teaching the kids how and what that equipment does.
Yeah, cool.
So Fairmont has one, correct,
Yes,
Mark? And
Yeah.
they don't need this one, or it's older, or
Yeah, that's correct. What they have was sufficient for what they're doing.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Do we have any other people that might want to have that second one you were talking about, or?
We want that second one right now.
Oh,
We're using it as a reserve engine at this point. Ultimately, we would take that out of service as well, and then we'd look to donate that one as well. Just a quick update on the Maple Crest project. We included a letter in your packet on Friday that was sent to all of the property owners affected by that project, basically stating we're still waiting on a signature from one of the residents, but the project will be moving forward. The resident who has not yet signed the necessary paperwork also received a letter, basically giving him about another week to sign off on that, or the project is going to move forward without them. So it's not going to hold up the project, but it is possible that that particular individual would not be part of the project. I suspect that this will get taken care of this week and that project will move forward in its entirety. Steve and I would be happy to answer any questions you have on the project if anybody's reaching out to you. Bruce, I think you got your hand up.
Yeah, if that person does not sign and we go forward and he is not connected to the new lateral, or his lateral isn't connected to the main, what happens with his property? Steve? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Duke. It's like in school. So the county will tie in his existing lateral to the new project. So he will be connected one way or the other. It's just that the county is offering to replace people's laterals all the way back to where it meets their house, which is not common for them to do. But since everyone's laterals in not the greatest shape, this is a once in probably 75-year project. They're offering that up to everyone. But in order to do that, they need everyone to sign that right of entry form so they can get onto their private property. This individual property owner just hasn't signed that. He had some concerns about the language in there that the county can't agree with. So basically, if he doesn't sign, they'll tie in his existing and they will not replace his lateral for him.
So if he doesn't sign, they tie into what he has now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he'll be connected one way or the other. It's just he's not getting the great deal that everyone else is getting.
Well, yeah, because the county's paying for, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
Thank you.
plus, Steve, isn't it true that the resident's responsible from front of his house to the street? So if he doesn't sign that,
And he has, right.
In some cases on Maple Crest, the lateral connects to the rear of the house. So it'd be a pretty invasive project if he would, and I don't know if it's his house or not, but if residents had to do this on their own, it would be very expensive for them to do that. So it's a great deal they're getting, frankly.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that, okay. Thank you.
We also included, continue to include, and included in your packet on Friday was public safety overtime reports. As you can see, those numbers are doing well. We're glad to see that. We're fully staffed in the fire department. We do have vacancies in the police department, but we also have operations in the police department that have been modified due to COVID-19. So for example, our SRO officers are working as part of patrol now instead of being in the schools. So that helps us with coverage and filling our shifts. So the numbers are good. We'll keep sending it to you each month as we go through that. And then of course, obviously also what's helping is we don't have a lot of vacation requests right now due to the pandemic, but that may increase a little over the summer. But the springtime was a situation where we had a lot of staff members here in town. So that worked out well for us. All right, I'm going to jump right into some COVID-19 discussion points. And there are quite a few, so I'll try to be brief on each topic, but get you where we are today so that we're all on the same page. In regards to our fitness centers, and this is both fitness centers, the one at the Recreation Complex and the one at Trent, they are both open as of today, and we did not have any capacity issues today. So we have a maximum capacity of 20 at the Trent, the Kettering Fitness and Wellness Center, and then we have a maximum capacity of 40 at the Recreation Complex. And we were okay today in that regard. And I think we'll be fine. So those are open, but yes, Bill. Bill, you're on mute.
Sorry, the 20 is inclusive of the walking track?
So that's a good question. The walking tracks are still closed.
Okay.
We were in contact with the local health department, and they know our facilities, and they said both walking tracks are to remain closed, and they are. The recreation complex, the recreation center, is not yet allowed to be open by the state. So while our fitness center is inside the rec center itself is not open. So when folks come into the rec center, they're funneled directly to the fitness center and funneled back out of the fitness center. They're not able to go onto the track. So the numbers, capacity numbers, are the actual fitness center spaces, if you will, in that regard.
Mark,
Yes, sir.
one other thing, just Mark, myself, and Scott Inskeep were on a conference call, and the schools were planning on having that track area closed because they were going to be doing some improvements within Trent Arena. So whether or not we get back to being allowed to use that, it's going to be incumbent upon where the schools are with their renovations or their improvements or just normal maintenance things. Because as you know, they would be doing those things during the summer months when the kids aren't in school. So that will be closed even if the governor says we can open it next week until the city has their improvements done to the Trent Arena one.
Bruce?
Mark, the 20 and 40 numbers is that our normal number, or is this the reduced number based on the spacing of the machines,
Sure.
et cetera? And either way, how is that working with the spacing of machines and people coming in and coming out, time-wise?
So the answer to your question is yes.
Okay.
It is a reduced number.
Yeah.
Because we had to calculate, but the reality is the number that we're at, 20 and 40, is sufficient for our normal workload.
Really?
So
Okay.
we don't anticipate a capacity problem. We do have 6-foot spacing on equipment. So not every treadmill is operational, not every bicycle. We have
Okay.
6 feet of separation between working pieces of equipment.
Good.
But the facility's square footage is large enough that we believe we'll be able to accommodate our regular, I said workload, but client load, whatever,
Right.
to handle that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mark?
Also opening today I'm sorry, Bill, go ahead.
Sorry, quick one. Are there time limits on the individuals who go into the facility? Can they hog it for 2 hours, or are they limited?
Yeah. Well, our our aerobic equipment has a 30-minute time limit. So like the treadmill is 30 minutes.
Okay.
What we've encouraged our patrons through our messaging is you're there to work out. It's not social hour. Do your thing, stay socially distanced, and then leave. And that should not be a problem because everybody's obviously well aware of the social distancing requirement, and they've kind of gotten used to it. Obviously, Bill, you've worked out at one of our facilities, and there are some folks that they hang out, which
They
is
do.
perfectly fine. Except right now, hanging out is not social distancing.
Okay, thanks.
Mayor.
Mark, can you talk a little bit about membership there or the ability to take new members?
Sure, and Mary Beth will chime in if I get this wrong, but right now our fitness center is open to the members.
Right.
It's not a drop-in program, it's a membership program, again, to make sure we're accommodating that capacity. Mary Beth, my assumption is we're still offering memberships if folks want to buy one.
Yes, we're not turning anyone away. Anyone that walks in, we can sell them a membership. That is accurate.
Okay, thanks, Mary
Yeah,
Beth.
I just wanted to clarify that because somebody called me today and asked if we were allowing people to buy memberships. And I said yes. Then I hung up and thought, uh-oh. So good.
Your
I
Honor,
had a 50-50 chance.
it wouldn't be the first time you guessed right on the answer. That's all right.
Mark, I do have I want to comment too on that is that we're not taking cash right now. So if you walk in and want a membership, you can work out that day for free. And then we're going to route you to our online process, and then you can buy whatever membership you want. So that's going to be the next couple weeks, like that.
Okay, thank you. We did, and you probably noticed, I think we gave you some information on this, but we also have periods of time during the day where we shut down. so that we can meet the state requirements for sanitation and cleaning. So, we'll be open for a few hours in the morning, shut down for an hour, clean the place up, open back up for lunch. So of course that's new as well. And Bill, that'll help cut down on some of the issues you're talking about as well.
Okay.
Tennis courts, pickleball courts, and the skate park all opened as of today as well. We do still have some things closed in the parks, obviously. Playgrounds are not allowed to be opened yet, so they remain closed in the parks. But we did get some things open today in the park environment.
Restrooms,
Mark, I got a question for you. I sent you something from an Ohio company that sanitizes playgrounds.
Yes, I saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if it has any relevance. It talked about more than just spraying stuff, but putting stuff on there that actually combated viruses, and it didn't let stuff stick to it and all. So
Yeah, we'll take a look.
I just want to make sure I forward that on to you. So there.
Yeah, I've got it. Thank you.
Okay.
Tony?
Mark, I think there used to be at the pickleball, I know there is up here at Island Park, there's porta johns. Are they going to be locked up to prevent usage of those, or they're going to?
they're open.
Again, I'm ready to answer about regular restrooms. Mary Beth, are the porta johns open?
They're.
Yes, the porta johns are available.
So, and Tony, and Bruce, on the restroom question, I'm gonna get to that during another
Okay.
discussion item. I'll get to that here soon.
Excellent.
I did want to, I apologize, but I'm trying to stay in order because that's how my desk is laid out right now. So I want to go into a little bit of financial detail related to COVID. I had mentioned to you that May 15th is a data point for our income tax revenues because withholding accounts are due on the 15th of each month. So the May 15th payment that is due is for the month of April. And obviously the pandemic restrictions were in place in April. So we wanted to see what that number looked like. This is a cash basis number, and it basically is January 1st through May 20th. And we compared that number to January 1st to May 20th of 2019. Our withholding accounts are the majority of our revenue for income tax. And the top 10 accounts are the majority of withholding, about 47%. So, 10 or 11 accounts are 47% of our total withholding accounts. Those 10 accounts were 7.29% higher than they were last year at this time. A good number. Our top 200 withholding accounts, and to put it in frame, we have about 3,000 withholding accounts, I believe is the current number. Our top 200 account for 80% of our withholding. So that gives you a pretty good indication that there's another 3,000 accounts out there that make up only 20%. So a lot of small mom and pop, one employee type operations. But our top 200 are up 5.3% from last year. Our total withholding during that time period is up 4.47%. So you can see from that the smaller the account, the more impact from COVID-19. Their numbers are down. But again, even with them being down, we're still up a little over 4.4%. So we were, I don't want to say pleasantly surprised, because we understand the diversity of our workforce and our employers, and that's a good thing for us to have. There are certainly going to be things that were done in March and April that are helping offset some of the pandemic expenses or cost. One of those being bonus season. Large corporations and bonuses take place in the March-April timeframe. So those bonus numbers are going to be in there. They may be masking a little bit of the employee headcount. Obviously, unemployment is at an all-time high. That has to have an impact. But again, a lot of employees are furloughed. Some of them took vacation. That reduces the impact. So we're happy with the number. I told staff today our next data point of significance is July 15th. That's the filing deadline for individuals. we're about $2 million below right now for individuals. That makes sense. Their deadline hasn't passed yet. So we expect July 15th, that number to rebound, and we'll know at that time. We'll also do the same analogy I just gave you on June 15th to see how the May withholding numbers took place. Tony, I think you had your hand up.
Yes. I want to make sure I understand this 4.5% over the same period last year, because at the end of April, we were 10% behind last year, right?
Yeah, at the end of April, we were down, and it was almost $2 million. And that same $2 million could be associated to the individual filing deadline change. The withholding percentages were still good at the end of April. But the decline in revenue was the fact that we did not have the April 15th deadline for individuals.
So this
And that-
4.5% is the dollars that are on here. We went from being 10% in the hole compared to last year to now we're up almost 5.
No, so the number you're looking at, Tony, and I think you're looking at that summary schedule.
Yeah, that's what
Okay.
we get. Yeah.
That's all accounts. That's withholding, corporate, partnerships, individuals. The numbers I'm giving you are just withholding. And in April, that sheet you're looking at, the withholding portion of that number was still positive, like 4% positive. But the number was down in total because we didn't have the withholding or the filing deadline for individuals.
Mark, we're really not going to know anything until July 15th deadline comes, when people actually, if they don't extend that, until people file their city income taxes.
Yeah, yeah, that's accurate. And we're going to, like I said, we'll look at the June 15th filing deadline as well. Or not the filing deadline for withholding accounts on June 15th to give you those same numbers I just gave you for May 15th. We'll do that in June. But the reality is the individual tax returns will come in July 15th. We're expecting that to cover about $2 million of that shortage that was in that April number Tony referred to.
Mark, just following that up, do we know, because when the filing deadline was April 15th, people could file extensions, which gave them the opportunity to pay their taxes at that time, but to file an extension till October 15th. Is that October 15th deadline in there? Or did that get married into the July? I can't seem to get a straight answer.
Yeah, my understanding was July 15th is the filing deadline. And if you file for an extension, the extension deadlines are the same as they were before.
Okay.
But that's my understanding. If Nancy Gregory's on the call tonight, I'm sure she'll text me and let me know if I just got that wrong.
But that October thing isn't a big deal because people are supposed to send in with their extension their estimated taxes that they owe the city, the state, the federal, whatever that is.
That's correct.
And people try and get pretty close to that because there's penalties, interest, et cetera, if you don't do that. So.
Yeah, it's an extension of time to file, not an extension of time to pay.
Yeah. Okay.
Bill?
Mark, have you had a chance to talk to any of your counterparts in other cities? Are they seeing the same type of positive numbers that you just shared with us?
Yeah, so we got these numbers on Friday, and I was able to contact 2 different cities, one of them a large city, and they are experiencing similar type numbers to us in this particular category. Yep. All right, with that, I'm going to move back into the Parks and Recreation area and talk about youth sports. You saw an email this weekend, I'm sure, detailing some youth baseball. What I'd like you to do is just kind of forget about that email for a second. Let me tell you what's really happening and where we're at. Gary over in our parks maintenance operation has reached out to all the youth sports organizations, and he is working with them to come to maybe the best way to describe it is mutually agreeable terms to operate youth baseball. So we have the state guidelines. We have some recommendations to implement those state guidelines. Gary's working with the youth baseball folks to get that pulled together, working with the presidents of those organizations. So EKRC, KABC, and FKAL. And he's working with them. He's working with them today. You saw some concern about not having restrooms. We will have restrooms. You saw some concerns about concession stands. I'm not so sure we're going to have concession stands. The way the youth organizations work, and I'll take the restroom building, for example. Our Parks Department will clean the restrooms, and I'll make this up, in the mornings. Then the baseball folks come in and run the facility throughout the day. The baseball folks make sure it's stocked with paper towels and toilet paper and soap and that type of stuff. As we move forward, if we're going to have restrooms available, we'll clean them, but it'll be the baseball associations that'll have to be responsible for adhering to the state guidelines and recommendations while they're using the facility. So what that may mean is something like the little kids use the restroom, somebody from the association will go in, spray the necessary disinfectant, wipe down, and control access throughout the day to the restrooms. So Gary will work that out with the youth sports organizations. Concessions is a tricky one. The state's very clear that they don't want food being handled and distributed unless it follows very stringent guidelines. Probably the best thing that if we were to participate at all in concessions would be, we would recommend to the associations, you can have water bottles, Gatorade, pop, something where somebody in a mask and gloves can hand somebody a container that's sealed and they can have it. Because the state requirement is very clear that there's not to be any shared water bottles, no water coolers, no drinking fountains. They don't want kids sharing that. So one way, if little Joey forgets his water bottle that night, well, maybe the concession stand has water bottles. But they shouldn't, in my opinion, they shouldn't have, tacos and other stuff where they're preparing food. So that's the kind of stuff Gary's going to work out with the associations. Our timeline is such that we're bringing back from the layoff furlough list 7 or 8 folks who are experienced with our field maintenance and our parks crews. They will come back June 1st, get the fields in playable order, and tentatively we were shooting for a June 15th, kind of ready to go type operation. So that is youth sports. Mayor, I think you got your hand up.
Yeah, a couple things with these sports groups and that. When they have tournaments and things like that, they clean the restrooms and take care of the restrooms in previous years. Is that my understanding?
Yeah, if during the ongoing event, the associations take care of the restrooms.
Same way with concessions. Do those groups run?
That's correct. We do not run concession stands.
So really, we're not deviating from what we have in the past. We're just coordinating with these various groups on how we're going to do concessions if we do them, and how we're going to clean restrooms other than the specified times that we're going to do an overall cleaning. But throughout the event, throughout the number of games in the day or whatever, those sports groups will take care of the restrooms.
Yeah, and really what we're working towards is a situation where we are comfortable and they are comfortable that the plan we put in place is consistent with what the state of Ohio is either requesting or requiring for youth sports. So we're working with them to make sure that that plan is in place before they bring the kids out to the fields.
Are we going to be providing the chemicals for them to sanitize these? I only ask that because PPE stuff is still somewhat difficult to get. So how is that going to work?
Yeah, Your Honor, I would call that a weeds detail, and we'll make sure we're working with them. And if we can help them in that regard, we will. Bruce?
2 questions, Mark. You've covered youth sports, baseball, whatever, that's good. Adults that play on some of these fields,
Yep.
When the kids aren't there, there's night games, for example, at Delco and so forth. Restroom issue for that. And then secondly, As I mentioned, I was over at Pondview the other day, and there are a dozen or so people, adults, kids, fishing, walking, restrooms locked. Are we going to be opening those restrooms for general public use, not related to youth sports or adult sports?
Well, I was going to stay on the adult sports, and then Mary Beth can chime in on Pondview Park. If we have adult softball, our plan is to have kind of a summer fall league, and Parks and Rec is working on that right now for the adult softball leagues. If we have those leagues, then we'll, just like the kids, we'll have to have softball or restrooms available, and we'll take care of that. I'm not sure about the answer to your question on Pondview Park. If Mary Beth's still there, maybe she can chime in.
Yeah, we are, we will open the restrooms, and to your point, Mark, in regards to specific programs, but of course, our inability to keep restrooms clean will make it very difficult to open to the public on a regular basis. So until we get more guidance or more cleaning opportunities of the public restrooms during normal hours outside of sports groups, or I'd say Carrie has a program out at Pondview with kids sometime this summer. We'll have them available, but we'll be responsible for cleaning them with any program we have. And for general use right now, we just don't have the manpower to clean a restroom right after somebody's done with it. Hope that answers your question.
Mary Beth, are we going to be publicizing this wherever, however? And I'm sure that Mary's on here, so people know if they go to Pondview Park that they better go to the bathroom before they leave if they've been used to going to Pondview and finding it open.
That's a fair question.
That's a great question. Mark and I just talked about that this morning.
Well, he told me to ask.
Thanks. But we're currently working on a plan to roll out dates for everything. But regarding the bathrooms specifically, once we start creating more rollouts of our phasing plan, we will begin to include more facilities that are open and will be open. But I will tell you right now, for bathrooms, and Mark, chime in anytime you want, it's going to be very difficult to keep our flush bathrooms open if they're not specifically designed with a program involved, just because of cleaning. So for the near future, unless something changes, public bathroom access for our flush toilets will only be accommodated with program specific activities.
Okay,
But we
thanks.
are planning on rolling out more dates once we get more clearance for when we can open.
Any other questions on youth sports before I move on to a different topic? All right, I'll move on to Poland Farm. You probably heard last week that they opened up banquet centers up to 300 people, but social distancing is still required. And of course, that limits capacity. So Mary Beth and I chatted this morning about Poland Farm. We have roughly 4 or 5 events that are still on the calendar for June. The majority, obviously, folks have already canceled their events, but there are 4 or 5 events out there. So PRCA staff is working with those 4 or 5 folks to see just what their event is, what their population is, and what capacity we could handle. And then we can make decisions about whether or not to open for that event. So we are looking at that, but I did not want to give the illusion that 300 people will be allowed at Poland Farm next week, because you still have to social distance. And 6 feet is a lot of distance at the gazebo for a wedding. So it tremendously downsizes the available population there. Yeah. Your Honor, I got your hand up.
Yeah, I'm on as many phone calls as anybody. And this whole 300 capacity, even the restaurant thing, perplexes me, because nobody can give me an answer. When you go into a restaurant and you're 2 couples, they will seat you at a table for 4 and you are 2 feet away. So I don't understand this social distancing other than the next table is 6 feet away. So you're getting groups that are 4, 6, 8 that aren't within the same family that are going to restaurants, and I won't name ones that I went to, but there's 6 people sitting around there that are no more than 6 feet from one another than the man in the moon. Now, I will grant you that the next table may be 6 feet away, but how do they rationalize this as following the guidelines of distancing 6 feet?
Yeah. So, Your Honor, what I can tell you is essentially what they've done is if you come into a restaurant as a group, you have to have a group size of less than 10, and they essentially treat you as if you're from the same household. And then the next table over is a different household that has to be 6 feet apart.
Right.
And that is why the 10-foot or the 10-person rule is still in place, even though you can have a banquet center of 300. Because you're taking groups of 10, calling them a household, and you might have 30 of those groups of 10 at a banquet. As long as they're 6 feet apart, that's okay.
I understand that, but that's tacitly saying it's okay for you to come with 4 to 6 people and just be feet apart.
Yeah. Jackie?
True, but perspective. So while we were in Gatlinburg they didn't have the 10, they had the 6. And even though all of us were living in the same condo, we couldn't sit together for dinner. They had to split us into 4 and what was it? Yeah, there was 7 of us. So they had to split us into 2 tables every time. So yeah, there is no logic. It just, each state has their own little square. And
Yeah.
even though we were all sleeping in the same place, they go, nope. And it was 6 and a baby. That made it number 7, and you couldn't have 7 because their limit was 6 in Tennessee.
I think the point is, though, that Jackie, that was your family's choice, or Don, when you got a group of 8, that's 8 people saying, yep, we're going to pretend we're a family. They're willing to take that risk. But if I come in with my wife and I don't want to be near that group of 6 or 8 or whatever. I want my own 6 feet away from them.
And you will. And you will.
And I think that's the logic.
You get your 6 feet. Every one of the tables was 6 feet.
That's my point.
Whether it was a 2 top, a 4 top, or a 10 top, they were 6 feet away.
Right, that's my point. Yeah, so what I'm saying is if people want to come in a group of 6 and they're not related, that's an adult choice they're choosing to make. And if they want to take a risk, that's up to them.
Bruce, if this pandemic was based upon people doing what they wanted, we wouldn't be in any of this thing. So to say because those 10 people are willing to do that goes against all the rules, regulations, and why do we have them?
But yeah, they're obviously willing. Okay, well, never mind.
I think I mentioned this earlier. Playgrounds obviously are still closed. The National Parks and Recreation Association also considers splash pads playgrounds. So our splash pads will remain closed until we get guidance on playgrounds. Splash pads have a lot of touch points, and the state has been altering touch points. It's gone from, if it's touched, it must be wiped down immediately after it's touched, to now possibly like 2 hours. You got to come in every 2 hours and wipe it down. So we'll continue to monitor the state in that regard with splash pads. We made
playgrounds, Mark. I've seen parents and kids on swings and so forth. Are we going to retape, or are we just going to let people do what they choose and announce that they're closed and then people decide, or what?
Yeah, obviously it's an education campaign, Bruce. We're not sending enforcement out there. Okay. I believe we have signs that the playgrounds are closed.
There are, yep.
We have people leaning on the sign while they play on the playground. But it's an education thing.
Okay, yeah, I just want guidance. That's all. I want to know what to tell people.
Yeah,
they're asking.
We made a decision, obviously, a few weeks ago to keep our water park closed for the summer. The new state guidance that came out on that hasn't changed my recommendation or my opinion on that. We've run some math calculations and looked at the facility, and it's going to mean less than half of our capacity would be our daily use. And frankly, financially, that's not doable. Also, what's not necessarily doable, and we mentioned this the last time, but I don't have the staff for the water park. We did not hire those folks. We are 6 to 8 weeks out before we could hire the staff and get them on board. So that takes us into July. The water park essentially shuts down in mid-August due to not the weather, but due to the schools going back and the kids going away. The college kids no longer being able to work, they go away. So to be open for roughly a 4-week period at half capacity, I stand by our decision because it's a safety decision. But even if you take away the safety factors, I'd have to stand by that decision because financially, I don't know that it makes sense. So I looked at some information, and NRPA, the National Association, did a survey, and 31% of the pools are not opening. 46% are still waiting. 23% are going to open either with reduced offerings or with unlimited offerings. And then OPRA also did a survey, and 58% of the pools chose not to open. So I don't think we're in the minority here with our decision. I stand by our decision, but I also know it's a difficult decision, and we want to make sure we have programs for our citizens. But at this point, that's my recommendation in that regard. And if I got this right, I think Jackie had her hand up first.
I don't disagree with the decision. I guess I'm more along the lines of, can we start to do a little bit of educating? Because I think, Mark, two data points that I think are just so critical is the one, we couldn't, even if magic happened and everybody had a vaccine tomorrow, that's the what if, we can't staff it. And I think that's an important fact. And I'll say staff because it takes X amount of training, which leads you to, you can't open till July, and the cost to break even. Because people have this perception that the tax they're paying is this magic that just funds everything. And I think that there is goodness to trying to teach. Some are still not going to like it. They're still going to be pissed off. Don't get me wrong. But I think education could help. It could be an enabler.
Yeah, a number of our phone calls were membership-based phone calls, if you will. They had that same discussion with me that, I pay my tax dollars, I should be able to go to the pool. And I've had to explain, well, that's not accurate. You have to have a membership to go to the pool or pay a drop-in fee. And then once they realized that, then the discussion, was factual-based and that worked a lot better.
We really don't want to have a sunk cost, and none of us do as residents either, want a sunk cost that you're right, you would never get out of the $3, $5, whatever we charge. You're right. And so I think that's a little bit of education, I think would go a long way. I don't disagree that it's the right decision because we just can't man it, number one. Number two, the time it would take us to man it, we just would lose a shitload of money. And I don't think the residents want us to be a loss leader straight up. Yeah. But I think that they don't know that right now.
Hey, Mark, would it be possible to release those numbers that you ran and show how much we would have lost, run that hypothetical and literally release it? I mean, because that's probably one of the top two items I'm getting beat up on by our residents is the water park. And then the phrase would be the other one. And
yeah,
I can only imagine how much money we would lose on the phrase, but the water park specifically.
Well, certainly on the water park, we could put some information out there that clearly states why we made our decision. We can do that. And I know Mary's listening, so she's making a list for me. But, we can certainly do something in that regard. Don and Bruce both have hands up.
Mark, I think it's important. What Jackie says is true. However, I've tried this argument from all sides because I get a call 2 a day. Most people aren't buying, the ones that have any sense of intelligence aren't buying the fact that we would lose money on the pool. They are quick to point out that we seem to lose money on the phrase every year. We don't make money on the parks that we run. A lot of the things we do because they're services to the residents and they cost the city money. So what I'm telling you is just be careful if you want to take that argument side, because somebody will challenge you and say, you get my taxes and use them for things. You can't base whether you get money back, whether you break even. This is a service that's provided for the city, and whether you lose money, you're going to have to tell me right now, Mayor, that you don't lose money on any of the services you provide. And that's problematic. So,
Bruce?
For pools that, and places around the country, Lake of the Ozarks, et cetera, that are opening, they're still encouraging, social distancing. My concern for our water park is when I look at the people we hire to run that, these often are teens. These are kids that are, in their 19, 20 or less. And I'm just talking about the educational side of this as we explain to the public our reasons for not doing this. I don't think it's fair to even attempt to try any kind of responsible social distancing at a water park and asking young kids like that to try to enforce that kind of stuff. It ain't going to work. It doesn't work for adults, for heaven's sake. The kids are going to have a hard time. So
yeah, there was an article in the Associated Press ran that was basically an interview with a large pool operator, and that was their point exactly, was you cannot expect a lifeguard to police social distancing. One, they're 17, 18 years old. Right. And two, they're not supposed to be doing that. They're supposed to be monitoring for life safety. So,
but that could just be part of an educational program, is what I'm saying. Try to get all that.
Mark, pardon me if I missed the boat on this. We're talking about the water park. Does that mean the swimming pool?
Yeah, so what we haven't talked about yet, Bill, is the indoor swimming pool.
That's what I'm talking about. Because there's a lot of people that would like to lap swim.
Yeah.
And I think we ought to try, if we can, to accommodate those individuals.
Yeah,
and some of them are handicapped or disabled, and that water is therapeutic for them.
Yeah. Parks and Rec is looking into that and putting some scheduling together and looking at how we do that. We also have a facilities improvement project that was scheduled for September, and we moved it into June because we thought the pool was going to be closed. So I'm working with Dave Durich on that to see where that stands and whether or not we can get that done, or if we should, again, push it back out. But we'll work on that. We do intend to come up with a plan that we could do that. But you're right. You mentioned lap swimming, and it's mostly going to be lap swimming because, again, the mathematical calculation and the small square footage of pool deck, it's not like we could have a very productive open swim in that pool.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Yes, sir.
Mark, when do you expect to have something on that? Because we've basically been telling people the indoor pool will open, and I think people are reading that as I can bring my kids up there to swim. The regular water park is closed.
I'll get with Mary Beth this week and we'll figure something out. Like I said, I'm still waiting on some public service answers as well. But as soon as we get that, we'll get with Mary Beth and we'll see what we can do. That will involve, obviously, we have to bring back employees. But those employees we have, they're on the layoff and furlough list because we were running the pool with that staff already. So hopefully we'll be able to work that out. The caveat is some of our employees who are on layoff may have gotten other jobs and may not be able to come back, but we'll check into that. I think I mentioned in a memo form to you the school resource officer situation. As you know, we have a contract with the schools to provide that. It's a 70-30 split. They pay 70% of the officer, we pay 30%. With COVID-19, the schools closed in March. We terminated, in essence, the contract the date of the school closures so that the schools are not required to pay for our employees from that date in March through the graduation day in May. So we modified their invoicing and took care of that with them. Just wanted to give you that heads up on that. Then the other two projects that we have that I want to get some input before we go into executive session here. We have two capital improvement projects that we've put in the pending list. We didn't say do them and we didn't say postpone them. They're pending. And that's the Rosewood improvements and the Gentilly Park improvements. The Rosewood project is, between $4 and $5 million over several CIP years. and it has a $450,000 grant from the state. The Gentilly project's a little over $1 million, and it has a grant for the playground from, I think, Ohio Department of Natural Resources. Can we delay the project and still keep the grants? As of about 4:45 today, we got a different answer from the state that is beneficial to us, that says, yes, we can delay it, reappropriate the project at a later time. Would essentially mean we'd have to have the majority of the project done by June of 2022, which to me means we could postpone the project until 2021 to do the project. The first part of the Rosewood project is getting the design done and then putting a roof on the building. We could do both of those things in 2021 and more, and keep that project on schedule for that 2022 date. The Gentilly grant is also flexible. It's not a huge grant, and I'm not as concerned about losing that. The Gentilly project is a little farther down the line in that we do have a portion of the design already done. So I think really there we have three options. We can do Gentilly Park, period, this year, or we could finish the design this year and hold the construction, or I can stop the design and stop the construction. I'm looking for raised hands at this point. If you want to make a recommendation for me on how you want to proceed. Jackie's not only raising her hand, she's flipping her light switch on and off. So we have Jackie and the mayor with their hand up.
I was gonna ask, how much is from a sunk cost on the design part of it? I mean, if you had stopped that part way through, what's the numbers?
Yeah, I don't think we'll be on the Gentilly Park. I don't think we're damaged by stopping. Frankly, I don't think we need to stop. We could go ahead and complete the design. We're almost there from the spending of the money anyhow. Just go ahead and finish the design. And then if you say construct in 2021 or 2022, we'll put a plan together. With Rosewood, we have not started the design, and we've notified them, hey, we're in a stop mode right now. So I don't think we're losing money there. A little synergy maybe, but that's it. But I don't think we need to pull the trigger on the design. Your Honor?
Just a question. The time frame for the design on Rosewood, what's the estimate for that? I mean, what I'm getting at is, do we have to pull the trigger on the design phase now to meet things in 21, 22, or do we have 3, 4, 6 months to do that? Because I can tell you, to go out and do the Rosewood project now, where we're going to be looking for millions of dollars, hopefully, or million, from businesses who don't know whether they're still around or what condition they're going to be in, is problematic. So I guess my feeling is that if we don't have to pull the trigger now, that we see where we are, because if we determine that we're not going to be able to put money in for the next 2-3 cycles, or we don't feel we can generate funds to do what we hope to do, those plans that we're designing may become moot, and then we end up having to go back and spend our money because we've used up a grant for this thing here on that. The park, I think we need to hit the pause button. And I mean, hell, we've hit the pause button so many daggone times on that park over there. I feel bad, but I just feel a little irresponsible in making decisions for some things for 2021, 2022, not knowing where we are in this entire process. So spend the money on Rosewood to design something we may not be able to afford. I just am looking for some guidance on that.
Okay. Well, if I put this back in a plan mode of what you just said, we could get you a document that will meet the state's guideline for completion, so we can keep the state grant, but we'll push the design back as far as we can. and still meet that state grant requirement. We could put that document together, give that to you, and that'll kind of map out the timing. And then we see how you feel about that, because I'm sensing how you feel about just moving forward right now is not a wise decision. Let's pause. So let me put a plan together that pauses and still meets the state's requirements. And I'll bring that back to you on June 9th or in a Friday packet prior to that.
Yeah, and I don't know that the park will be so much different whether we design it now or whether we design it in a year, because we're going to pay the full amount. What it'll come down to is, do we have $1 million+ for a park, or do we have $500,000 for a park? And that's the same basket I'm looking at for design. We're designing something we don't know what it's going to look like based upon the current situation. I got a little bit of heartburn with that.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll put together a plan that pauses both projects, but tells you exactly what it looks like under a paused mode. Again, my guess is, my recommendation will be, well, let's just go ahead and finish the design of Gentilly Park, because it's probably almost, I don't want to say almost done, but it's on its way to being done. And that may end up with a park design of 1.5 million or 1.1 million, whatever it is. And if we don't have that kind of money, then we'll have to go back and take elements out of the design. But I think we'll be okay there. And then with Rosewood, we'll put together a plan that pauses the entire project, including design, but starts it up in a timely enough manner that we can still hang on to the $450,000 in state funding.
Well, there's 6 other people that need to weigh in here too.
I see some head shaking. Yeah.
I agree with that. Yeah, I think that's a wise way to go.
Yeah. I usually give you whatever you want, Mayor, but I did see some other heads bobbing up and down, so I figured we were okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep, me too.
I agree.
I agree.
Okay, it's 2 minutes till 7. At this point, just want to remind everybody, we're going to open the administrative buildings to the public on June 1st. I'll mention that tonight in my city manager comments. And then our intention is to have a gathering of folks in the council chambers on June 9th, as opposed to a virtual meeting. And we'll make sure that we have social distancing. And if we get a lot of public that want to come to the meeting, we can accommodate them in a conference room until it's public comment period. They can watch the council meeting on TV, and then we'll bring them up for the public comment if we don't have enough space for them. Yes,
Mark,
Bruce.
Mark, before we close, but you're going to talk about tennis, pickleball, and skateboard probably tonight. BMX track and sand volleyball. You didn't mention those. Are they open? Are they going to open also?
Mary Beth, help me out.
They're on our agenda.
Yeah, they were in your packet. Yeah.
Just sort of
Mary Beth, if you're still out there,
He's gone.
just text me, and I'll answer the question.
Yeah, just so they're not, so the public's not confused. That's all.
Yeah, understood.
You want me to open my window and yell at her? She's on the patio over here. So.
No, I don't want you to do that.
Mark, Nan Whaley offered the services of the Montgomery County health people if we needed it in coming up with a plan for social distancing within the council chambers. I thanked her, but told her I thought we were pretty well equipped to take care of that. But just bear in mind if we want something.
You bet. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Your Honor, with that, if you'd like to take us into executive session, and for those people that are watching, it's not my intention to go. We'll come back into workshop just to adjourn the meeting.
Yes, is there a motion to enter into executive session under section 121.06K of the codified ordinances for the purposes of personnel matters, labor negotiations, economic development, property matters, and negotiations with organizations or individuals?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Vice Mayor Klepaz,
Yes.
Mr. Lauder,
Yes.
Mr. Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Duke,
Yes.
Mr. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Wanamaker,
Yes.
myself. Okay, I'm to make sure that the live streaming has been turned off.